8 hours and 42 minutes. Another 18 minutes and you can run home. The night shift will be here. Miranda better not be half an hour late like last time. 2 days ago, Lisa won't wait for the bus, and there's no money for a cab. Or rather, there is, but she can't afford to spend a penny extra. September is coming up. Ethan will go to school, and not even half of the supplies have been bought yet. If Miranda is late again, she'll have to walk 10 kilometers, and we have to get to the supermarket before midnight. You'll never get home, that's the trouble. Ethan, of course, is a good boy, knows already when Lisa is not home, opens the doors. No one is allowed and no noise is allowed. He early learned to read Smart Child, and now faithfully, quietly, sits on his couch with a book. Or maybe he draws or plays some Snake on his old cell phone. Lisa was going to buy a new cell phone for her nephew as a present for his first Knowledge Day. Ethan's TV is now afraid it'll be enlarged by a movie. The neighbors will hear and report that the aunt is not watching the baby. This has already happened in their little family. The neighbor from the apartment across the street, a nasty aunt with a narrow face, looking like a mouse, apparently, purposely watching them, and then signals, simply put, me. We don't need another visit from the child welfare authorities. Last time, White Kelly, a plain-voiced official, already told her you're under our thumb. We remember your family. We know you all as prisoners. What, Mom? Did you, Lisa, have negligence? What about Daddy? And I'm not even talking about your precious sister. I don't know who let you, Lisa, give up your baby. Michael, you know. You can't crush it with your finger. I'll make sure Ethan is taken away from you and returned to an orphanage. They look after the kids there properly. They're clean. They don't starve. They don't sit alone at night. Kelly's been afraid of her since she was a kid. The guardianship specialist used to be the head teacher at her school. She was disliked and was known as the nightstand. She looked like a cube because she was overweight and had a peculiar figure. The head teacher quietly knew exactly how to treat children, although she had no offspring of her own and no husband. Kelly devoted all her free time to work. Actually, she wasn't just defending the principal. She also taught art and labor classes. That was the name of the subjects, technology, and woe, to those unfortunate people who did not know how to handle a sewing machine. Tombachka considered this skill essential to family life. That's what she used to say. No one so lazy, her didn't know how to Fleming, will ever marry her. I explained 100 times how to change threads in the machine, but our Fleming must have been dreaming of boys. You shouldn't be dreaming, dumbass. Fleming. That's her, Lisa. That was her last name back then. There was no one to teach her to sew. Her classmates' mothers or grandmothers could do it. There was no sewing class at school for a year and a half. They said Kelly was sick. There was no one to replace her. And when she got well, the first thing she said was that everyone had to learn to use a sewing machine by themselves for a year. And who didn't take a year to do that? Fleming, for example, is lazy. They belong in a school for retarded children, and then that they'll teach you how to sew mittens in prison. Nobody knew where the nightstand got her knowledge of life behind barbed wire. The children didn't dare to ask her about it. No one wanted to draw fire on themselves. It was much more interesting to watch her bullying Fleming. It could have lasted a whole lesson. Great entertainment. On the second lesson at home, the nightstand quickly read out another passage from the textbook and finally let the students get down to business. And the real circus began. Fleming, you should at least wash your hands. I'm afraid of getting the machine dirty. I washed them before class. Lisa excused herself. She came rushing toward her. Moving with surprising speed for an obese lady, she grabbed her hand, showing the Lisa class engaged in laughter on the palm of her hand. If you girls want to get married, never bite your nails like General Fleming does. Ugh, that's gross! All your fingers in their ink. Better not go near her. She's sure to charge you with something nasty. Look at her. Her dresses are all crumpled up, and she's all messed up. What did you girls have for breakfast in the dining room today? Ah, the Fleming years. We have a live menu. Anyone who looks at it knows what they're feeding the school children. And not just today, but yesterday and a week ago. She hasn't washed this dress in years. Lisa, to the delight of the students, started to cry. Who does she think she's so clumsy? Her mom is a model of beauty and style. And why does she lie about Lisa's dress being dirty? Mom makes sure her school uniform is clean every morning. Who is to blame that on the way to school, especially on those days when the schedule of labor lessons? Lisa constantly something happens to her. Then she gets a kitten on the street sick, and she returns home with her so that the little animal does not freeze in the street. Then the car squeams her up. Then the boys will launch that stupid, neither tasty summer look-alike dishwashing sponge at her for breakfast. The boys, too, are aware of how the nightstand mocks Lisa and are very sorry that their labor lessons are in a different classroom. The torture almost always ends the same way. A D for you, Fleming? At the end of each quarter, the nightstand's last phrase changed slightly. 3 makes 2 in your mind. As they say, once again our ruler got lucky. If we, teachers, were not scolded for bad marks, such stupid, long ago would have left our Fleming for a second year, and no one would have paid attention to her good marks in other subjects. What good are your A's in math and Russian Fleming if you can't sew your husband's underwear? After these words, everyone but Lisa laughed. In class, she was nicknamed Pantaloons. That's how she was addressed for the last 11 years. Pantaloons to write off. Or even pantaloons? Panties for her beloved sewed once, already in the 9th grade, when the hated labor lessons were left behind. On March 8th, the guys prepared a surprise for the girls. In the morning, their classmates had flowers on their desks. Even the ugly, cheerful fat girl's Molly, who always smelled unpleasant even in her silly and round face, and Adriana, who stayed on the second year 3 times in different classes. And now, the teachers had set themselves the goal of getting rid of her, and were trying their best to pull double grades in all subjects. It was not easy to do it. Adriana could read and write with difficulty, and she could not count even with the help of a calculator. In general, everyone except Lisa had jokers prepared for her. Perhaps not without the help of the girls. A special gift of huge, polka-dotted men's underpants. You can't learn Fleming because you're lazy and stupid. But we're your friends. We've done everything for you, announced Sebastian, the class's chief pariah. Nasty, pimply-faced sycophant with lazy lips. No thanks. You can look for your knickers. You've already got underpants for him. You'll need a lot of time, though. You're not much of a housewife, and you're not very pretty. But don't worry, by the time you retire, some blind man will embarrass you. Then the class erupted in laughter. It must have been really funny. The family happiness of the man who was given a piece of cloth as a gift to Lyra must have had volumes like a hippopotamus. Satisfied with the effect, Sebastian smiled, looking at his classmates, who liked to kick his briefcase at recess or discreetly spit on a couple's back. Laughing meant they approved. Maybe this time they wouldn't kick him on the way home and laugh at the brand new pink phone his mother had bought him. Mom doesn't know anything about normal things. Why did she have to get that awful accessory? But that's okay. Now the class will finally have a new object of ridicule. Who better than Sebastian to know all about bowling? He himself had taken over after his predecessor Ron moved to another city. What Sebastian didn't know was that his moment of fame would remain just a blink of an eye. The very next day, his backpack would be being used to play soccer at recess. and the phone that had brought him so many unpleasant minutes would accidentally drown in the toilet. But right now he was enjoying the attention, glancing around to make sure he was being watched by Stephen, the recognized student leader. Sebastian took a mouthful of saliva and spat it all over Lisa's dress. Valley pantaloons home, making a habit of washing rags for her future spouse. Lisa ran out of the classroom to avoid tearing up in front of everyone. Not enough to please those creeps with a tantrum yet. That day, she didn't show up at classes anymore, and after the party, she demanded her mother to transfer her to another school, even at the end of the world. She had asked her mother to do this before, but in vain. This was the school where her mother had once studied. That's where Lisa Cathy's little sister was going in the fall. Great school, the best in town. Mom shrugged. Didn't you ever wonder? Maybe you're the problem. You can't have the whole class picking on one student for nothing if they haven't done anything wrong. My former classmates and I are still friends. Except for Lisa, he was always whining and complaining. We ended up boycotting him to reconsider his behavior. Daughter, and people will reach out to you. But they call me difficult and throw my bag down the toilet. Have you ever scolded me for that yourself? Lisa couldn't take it anymore. All the girls got flowers for Women's Day, and I got horrible and different knickers, and they laughed at me. Then I guess I'll have to watch myself better. That's it. Mom shrugged, covering one cigarette with another. She worked as an editor at a large publishing house and smoked all the time, explaining that it was a nervous job. You really do wear things very neatly. How do other people manage not to get dirty? Try and you can do it. You're a girl, not a pipe cleaner. Maybe the guys really don't want to hang out with you. You're always carrying yourself around with some stray animal. No wonder your clothes get dirty. The problem was solved, oddly enough, by the main perpetrator of the bullying, the nightstand. Her favorite part of her job was visiting students' families. Other teachers weren't too fond of visiting the apartments of truant students, especially since they had to do it in the evening after work to be sure to catch the parents at home. But Kelly was first of all single, and secondly, curious. Besides, she was well aware that a visiting teacher is
Always treated to tea, served with a brissamole. Best candies and sweets. Do not want to hit in the dirt face, respect. Nightstand did not immediately find the right house by the same peers and the same neighborhood.
And it's still chilly outside. It's early March. Spring is only on the calendar. I wonder what they'll feed her with. Fleming. They'd better put us on. Caviar and cheese sandwiches, smoked sausage. She was fed with these inaccessible viands in the house of Romanov, the director of the Combine, whose son often arranged various tricky ones. Just in case, the head teacher resigned herself to writing in a special notebook. So, Fleming Lisa, Mother Betty, editor-in-chief of a publishing house. Father Jack, design engineer. At the very factory Romanov runs, they're probably not poor. The fat lady smiled, anticipating a pleasant evening, and looked at the clock, 8 o'clock.
It was time for dinner. Great. So, tonight we don't have to cook anything. Savings again. You save money. You make money. Yeah, new construction. So they just bought the place. Kelly pushed the front door open with determination, puffing. Tension went up to the third floor. The elevator wasn't working for some reason. There was a sign on the door that said, renovation. Here's apartment 51. Nightstand pressed the call button with determination and heard Zalev rack the shelves. That was the only thing missing. Fleming's dog is a source of infection. If she, an honored educator, had been given a free hand, she would have eliminated all those white dung in the liquidation. She's got Fleming's hat on. Fleming was in no hurry to open the door. but the door of the apartment opposite cautiously ajar. "It is impossible to rest after work," as loudly as possible said the neighbor, a dyed blonde with a narrow face. "There are guests again. That nasty dog is yelling again. I'll call the police." "Do they often have guests?" she asked, feeling that she had found an ally. "Yes, all the time, Bohemians. What can you take from them? There is no control over them." Another participant entered the conversation, also a tenant of the apartment across the street. Apparently, the blonde's husband. "Got it, Kelly. My name is David, a heavy-set, mustachioed citizen named David. I'm a writer of historical novels." The writer looked nothing like himself. Representing the representatives of this creative profession was Taft. Taft was a formidable, unkempt man with a red mustache, dressed in camouflage uniform. The historian wore a blue paratrooper beret on his head. Apparently, he had just come from work, the head teacher realized. And in turn, she also introduced herself as Kelly, the deputy headmistress. They began. "Urka did something wrong," gloatingly suggested the blonde. "Exactly so," the nightstand readily confirmed, and unable to resist, clarified. "Someone like Lisa Fleming belongs not in the 10th grade, but in a vocational school. I don't know how her parents managed to persuade her to keep her in the school." The door to Fleming's apartment suddenly opened, and a slender lady with a short haircut appeared on the threshold. In her hands, she was smoking a cigarette. "What can I do for you?" asked the landlady, and immediately, without transition, shouted somewhere in the depths of the corridor. "We have visitors in the prohibition room." The neighbors evaporated, shouted one last time that something malicious smokers, who were about to burn down the house. I had to go to the nightstand to take care of everyone. "Betty, I'm the vice principal. How dare you smoke? Do you have kids?" Fleming, the eldest, looked at the nightstand. "Don't you think it's my business? Smoking in your own apartment or raising rabbits?" "Is your daughter not attending class? May I ask why?" Kelly replied, and went on the offensive. "May I come in?" "I will," Fleming suddenly agreed. "You're yelling at the whole entryway?" Not a bit of the subservience to which the nightstand was accustomed. Hopes of a delicious, hearty dinner were fading. The conversation took place in the kitchen, to the accompaniment of dog barking. The head teacher's tea was never offered. Hearing both Kelly's opinion about her mental abilities and the slovenliness of her eldest daughter, Betty did not even change in her face. She lit another cigarette, let out the smoke, guests right in her face, and calmly said, "Get out. We'll pick up the paperwork from your almshouse tomorrow, but it's the end of the year. Your Lisa will not get into any school." To Lepetov's nightstand, "Who told you my daughter would go to a school?" "My husband and I will find a more decent school," Fleming pointed out, and said loudly, "Lisa, our visitor is just leaving. Help her find her way out." She added, turning to the nightstand, "What an unpleasant acquaintance. It's a good thing we won't be seeing you again. Goodbye." As soon as the door slammed shut, the teacher started ringing the next doorbell. David opened it immediately. He must have been spying, the nightstand realized. Kelly did not yet know why she would need this acquaintance, but she had a feeling she would need them. The new school was found the very next day. It took almost an hour to get there, but no one there knew Lisa was stupid and ugly. She made friends. Kelly was soon asked to quit. She suspected it wasn't bearable. Fleming complained to the Department of Education. This was, by and large, predictable. What was offensive was another. Neither the plant director Romanov nor his wife stood up for the educator. Ungrateful people. The nightstand found a new job quickly. There was a vacancy. See in the guardianship department. The pay there was less than in the school, but this type of activity turned out to be much more interesting than the previous one. The former deputy director for educational work got real power. How mothers cried when their children were going to be taken away from them on the advice of others. There was always an excuse. No stock of cereals, no soup. The child doesn't study well. It was the parents' fault. It was not always possible to bring the case to the end. Sometimes the court sided with the family for some reason, but the nightstand knew how to finish the victim. Lisa glanced at her wristwatch. It was a dainty gold piece Michael had given her on their first wedding anniversary. They'd been 28 at the time. They were in love with each other. Lisa felt like they would always be. "Look what I got for you, old lady."
No sooner had Lisa opened the door than he picked her up in his arms and spun her around. Then he handed her a weighty box. "Gold without diamonds, but with your favorite garnets. You'll be checking what time I'm in and blowing my brains out."
"Oh, Simpson!" Lisa rejoiced. "How cool you are!" At that moment, the phone rang. Lisa glanced at the screen. Mom probably wanted to wish her eldest daughter a happy anniversary. "Hi," she answered excitedly and heard sobs in the receiver. "What's wrong?" "Kathy is pregnant!" cried the mother. "The term is already big, the 5th month. She dropped out of school. I can't manage on my own." Lisa Kathy's father had died by then, and her mother had retired. "Relax, I'll be right there," Lisa replied, and went to get dressed. "Wait." Michael was indignant. "It's our anniversary. I booked a table at the restaurant a month in advance. Does your mother even have a conscience? She didn't have to ruin our party." "It's already happened. Let's stop by their place for a little while and go to the restaurant." Lisa knew very well how hard it was for her to get a reservation at the most popular place in town. She made an effort and smiled affectionately at her husband. "That's where the doctor, got my surprise for you." It didn't turn out at all as she had planned. Instead of greetings and congratulations, the mother declared Ogienko from the threshold. "Why did you bring it?" "This is our family business. I, Betty, am in a way a member of the family too, the one cheesed." That's the most original wedding anniversary greeting I've heard to date. The mother-in-law was angry with tears. "You purposely decided to remind me that Kathy has no husband? I will wait in the car without delay and please." "We are late for the restaurant," said Michael Lisa, and slammed the door. "You dare to go to restaurants when there is unhappiness in the family?" The mother lashed out at Lisa. "Is having a baby a disaster?" Lisa asked slowly. "I thought you'd be happy to hear my news. Michael and I are expecting a baby. That's all we need," the mother exclaimed and theatrically clutched her heart. "How far along are you?" 10 weeks. Thank God. There's still time to get rid of the baby," said the mother. One dope didn't work. At least you won't be crazy." "Why do you need a burden? You'll have a nephew soon enough. You'll be tired of dealing with it." Lisa was speechless at first, then tried to explain to her mother that she was wrong. It didn't work very well. "Mom, I'm a grown woman. I've decided to have a baby. What's so terrible about that?" "Yes. And who's going to help us? My pension alone won't support the 3 of us. A child is expensive. Look, Mom, I think Kathy should have thought of that." Lisa couldn't take it anymore. "Goodbye, everybody." Seeing his wife's crying face, Michael clenched his fists. "Forget the road to this house. We won't let them ruin our party. Let's go to the restaurant." Lisa suddenly poked and grabbed her stomach. "Michael, we probably won't be going to the restaurant tonight. I have to go to the hospital right away. We have to save our baby." That was the surprise I wanted to give you in a different setting. We couldn't save the pregnancy. Michael was walking around like a cloud. He tried his best to dispel his wife's sad thoughts. Lisa, on the other hand, didn't even try to get out of the black pit of depression. She couldn't work. She just did the cleaning and cooking automatically. In 4.5 months, Neither her mother nor her sister tried to contact her. Not a single word of support was said. Another call from the mother came in early February. My grandson was born, and you have a nephew. Trafoa, Kathy and the baby are being discharged the day after tomorrow. She'll be home for a month and then back to night school. Stop nodding. I need your help. Ironically, it was a little man named Kevin who helped Lisa recover. Michael, who not unreasonably believed his mother-in-law to be the perpetrator of the misfortune, was at first opposed to his wife spending almost all of her free time with her. But when he became convinced that his nephew's concerns were having a positive effect, he calmed down. Worry and raids were still caused by Kathy. She never finished school. The son, too, was not too interested in this brightly colored beauty. One day, Ethan was already 5 years old. She informed her mother that she had met her fate and was leaving for the capital. Why did you forget this one? I don't want to. Like you, Dad. All your life Torquetti at work from bell to bell, said Kathy. Just before I retire, they'll kick me in the ass and I'll have to beg. I've got to make a life with the man I've chosen, Betty asked. I'm not taking him to this shithole. Won't you miss the glass? Kathy stepped in. I've got a terrific story. Mom, she said, folding her arms across her chest. You spent my whole life thinking I was bad, like everyone else, even though I came home late and didn't pay much attention to my studies. I didn't have a boyfriend. I was much more interested in playing with the feelings of my dumber classmates to make them all fail. Tears rushed from the girl's eyes. Kathy was back to that unfortunate night in Miss when the devil had pulled her to go to a new nightclub. We'll all be there, her friend Vanessa told her. Is it okay that we're all underage? Kathy asked. They won't ask for passports at the door. No passport or money will be needed. This place belongs to Benjamin's father, Vanessa smiled. Benjamin, promoted by his dad to a party of friends. Shall we go? Kathy readily agreed. The pocket money her mother gave her had not been enough for anything for a long time. And she didn't really want to work part-time in the evenings. The last year of school was coming up. She'd have to get ready for college. Were you fooling around with champagne for they'd eat? Nash, sadis! Shouted the club owner's son. To be honest, the booze was pretty bad. Kathy hasn't forgotten what bottles. Not so long ago, when Dad was alive and Mom was working, they used to stand at the bar at her parents' home house. And sometimes when the adults were away, Kathy and her girlfriends would sample the liquor Benjamin Fleming treated the guests with. Never would buy it. Cheap soda with alcohol. A basket. Taste it, it's so good. Echoing Vanessa's music, she had clearly consumed more than one glass of the cap. And Kathy made up her mind. Wow, it tastes pretty good. She was addicted. After a short while, the atmosphere in the club began to seem less gloomy. She was desperately dizzy, though. She should find a place and take a nap. She woke up to someone roughly tearing off her clothes. And the mountains. And me first. That bitch is gonna fuck with me. Kathy recognized the voice of Karpov's son, Ustenko, the short one. He should look in the mirror at himself first, and then he'll be hitting on decent girls. She struggled to blind her eyelids, going to tell her son everything she thought about him. But the situation was not in her favor. Someone's hand clamped over her mouth. Someone was holding her legs tight. Rapists. There were 5 or 6 of them, switching places. Guys, how can you do this? I'm not getting anything out of this, Sanek said, confused. Kathy threw up. Oh crap, I'll get all dirty. Outraged, one of the participants of the execution and painfully kicked the girl under the ribs. Don't worry, I lent you some clothes to walk home, said Benjamin. Okay guys, that's it. At Orjo 500, the staff has to go home, and they've got cleaning to do. Where's this going? somebody asked. Put her on. We'll send her home in a cab. And if she's snitching on someone, let her take care of it, Smith said confidently. Besides, who's going to believe her if she's such a saint? Why did you come to the club, and in that? A short dress that barely covers her ass? Basically, she provoked us. At home, Kathy slipped into the shower unnoticed. I don't want Mom to find out what happened. She's bound to go to the school, report it to the police. Smith's right. No one's going to believe Kathy. We've got to get on with it. The girl didn't find out she was pregnant right away. In fact, she realized something unforeseen had happened. When her belly began to grow, and then her mother noticed, dragged her schoolgirl daughter to the doctor. It turned out that it was too late to have an abortion. Go to school, where studied at least 2 of her offenders. Kathy could not. When she finished her sad story, the girl looked her in the eye. It was your fault too, Mom, she said. You didn't care where I was, who I was with. You gave up on me a long time ago. I don't want a rapist. If you need to sign any papers for custody, do it soon. I'm the only one in this village who'll spend any extra time. If you need money, my man will help. I can't let him go. I want to live a normal life at last. When I told my husband I wanted to take Kevin out of my life, Michael flipped out. We actually lost our own child because of that boy. He's not going to live with us. I'm not ready to be a father to him. But Mom has health problems, Lisa tried to explain. And she's not the right age? Will the boy end up in an orphanage? That's not our problem. Lisa, your mom and your sister have been using you all your life, don't you understand? Let's just forget they exist. Let's take one normal vacation. Do you want me to buy you a puppy? Remember, you asked me to. Or a kitten of any breed, Maine Coon, bald, whatever? Michael hugged his wife, but she pulled away. Michael, I can't betray a child. He's used to having a family. I, too, am used to living in a family with a wife I love. That's what Lisa... I've put up with all the antics of your crazy relatives for a long time, but all patience comes to an end. I'm afraid you have to make a choice between a poor orphan who, by the way, has his own mother, and me. I love you very much, but I choose Kevin, Lisa said firmly. You could have at least given me the decency to say you'd think about it. Grumbled her husband. So we'll take Ethan? Lisa rejoiced. No, I've said it all. The day he shows up at this house, I'll pack my things and leave. I don't want to waste my time going to the authorities and taking a bunch of tests just to have someone else's baby. I want a child of my own, but for some reason you're afraid to even think about it. It's been 5 years, almost 6. We're not young people. Lisa, it's not going to work out for sure. I want an heir. And I honestly don't care if you or some other woman will be the mother of my son or daughter. Lisa realized she'd overreacted and stopped talking. She decided to collect the documents for the custody of the joystick by herself and see what happened. But it was impossible to do it. For each movement in this difficult case required the consent of her husband. And Michael was not going to change his position already. And Kathy long ago left with a new beau, leaving her son with his grandmother. And custody was still pending. The mother died suddenly. Yesterday, Lisa helped her take down the Christmas tree. She took Kevin to her place for the night, and this morning she got a call from a neighbor. She stopped by the food for salt. No one answered the phone. Nancy actually had keys to the apartment, but she didn't need them. When the woman wanted to knock, the door swung open, and with a gentle nudge. The neighbor came in and found Betty sitting in the chair by the TV, trying to feel her pulse, but she was already cold. Michael was helping Lisa with the funeral. Kathy refused to come, saying she was going to the Emirates with her lover. The plane tonight? Kathy with Ethan? Then what to do? I don't have the papers ready yet, Lisa shouted into the phone. I already told you, it's not my problem. In case you didn't hear me the first time, I repeat, don't want this baby and I don't want the apartment. I don't want my car. I don't want my inheritance. Leave me alone. I have no past. She dropped the call and disconnected the phone. Michael, who witnessed the conversation, told his wife harshly, "Don't expect my heart to melt. The boy will only stay here until the funeral. What happens afterward, do you know? It's either him or me." However, it didn't have to wait until the day of the funeral ceremony. The next day, the doorbell rang. Lisa opened the door, thinking it was one of Mom's co-workers coming to pay their respects. Kelly was there. She hadn't changed at all in the 20 years Lisa hadn't seen her. Fleming. What a meeting of carnivores. The fat woman smiled, pulling her ID out of her bag. I'm a child welfare representative. A child has been abandoned and is to be removed to a boarding school. You had enough time to finish the paperwork, but you didn't do it. We're bringing in witnesses, neighbors, Betty, and the police. A fluffy, blue-eyed cat came running in from the kitchen, jumped on the couch, and started licking a handful. Pets in the house are unsanitary, Nightstand declared authoritatively. The cat should be put down. It's filthy, and it's giving her worms. What am I talking about? The kid's going to boarding school. At least let him say goodbye to his grandmother. Lisa flew in. The child has nothing to do with the funeral. What a family. Huh? I heard it. The voice from the apartment without knocking came from David Taft. In the 8 years Lisa hadn't lived in the building, the neighbor had gained even more. But he never thought to change his image. He still wore the same unsterile camouflage and the occasional blue beret. Get out! Shouted Lisa. Everybody get out of here! My mom's dead. But no, honey, I'm not going anywhere, grinned in. After sitting Taft, I'm not that one. Besides, I am a freelance correspondent for the local newspaper. I think readers will be interested to read a report from the scene about the removal of a child from a dysfunctional family. How is it that the editor-in-chief of the publishing house raised a mother cuckoo? Great story! What kind of bastards are you? Lisa creed. And Taft, having thrown himself in his mother's favorite chair, commented on what was happening in his own way as he was recording on a pre-flood. Video recorder. The apartment, as we can see, has not been renovated for a long time. Too bad the video doesn't capture the awful smell of tobacco. The late Betty smoked a lot. These are the conditions in which dear viewers lived the unfortunate baby. Huh. Only tonight, for the first time, he will finally have a chance to sleep in a clean bed. But who knows how long it will take the boy to forget life in this so-called family as a terrible dream. When the policeman, the juvenile inspector, and the district police officer entered the apartment, Lisa's face was completely swollen with tears. She, clutching to herself the sobs of howling. Kevin Osipov voice begged, "Do not take away the baby. Please do not take away." You see, colleagues, she is completely inadequate. Huh? In a calm, even tone, Tumbochka told the visitors. You can't leave the baby with an aunt who is in such a state. She clearly needs psychiatric help. Frankly, she's been unstable since childhood. Lisa is a former student of mine. She didn't do very well in school, though. Why would she have a nephew? Can't she have kids of her own? Lisa threw her fists at her in frustration. Unexpectedly nimble for her size and back from her, Kelly quickly said, "Ban the hitman, To leave, please. Though maybe that's unnecessary." Vaughn David is videotaping. At the screams of Kevin, who was being forcibly removed from his home. Other neighbors came running. Some tried to protect Lisa. "What the hell are you doing?" There's a family funeral tomorrow. Oh, Nancy was outraged. The same neighbor who found Ada dead. The child had been removed in accordance with the rules. The nightstand explained coldly. He'll be found another family, we're the adopters. If, of course, he's normal. I personally get the impression that he should be committed to a mental hospital. Mother's funeral was a blur. The next morning, Lisa said, Michael, you're not changing positions? Then I'm afraid I'm going to have to do something. I'm filing for divorce. Michael, I hope you'll agree to dissolve our marriage at the registry office. Would that be quicker? Yes, please, shouted the husband and disappeared into his bathroom. I'll pack my things today, no need. My parents and I will return to my parents' apartment, so I'll pack. I answered Lisa. How did she manage after 2 months to pick up a razor-thin, naked, unlikable nephew from the orphanage? Separate story. The parents' acquaintances helped, and many of them saw the monstrous scene posted on the social network and cried against the wishes of the homegrown paparazzi. People felt sorry for the aunt and nephew. Many wondered if Taft had the Horo's permission to videotape. This is some publicly important material. There is no need for any consent, answered all David. He eventually removed the video from the social network after he was summoned to the police at the request of outraged participants of the internet discussion and threatened with a fine. Taft was not afraid of liability, but the prospect of losing his money gave him a nervous tic. After some thought, he decided that the publication had already achieved its goal. Now he had to pay $5,000 to the state for some crazy family. But he and his wife, the lady who looked like a mouse, did not stop making trouble. It was his efforts that the nightstand regularly received denunciations about a child left unattended. Having brought Kevin home, Lisa returned to her job, but soon found out that she was not very welcome there. The baby was often sick, and employees who spend a lot of time on sick leave are not welcome anywhere. So she had to quit. It's a good thing there was this 24-hour kiosk. Lisa's painful memories were interrupted by Miranda's phone call. Finally, Lisa, I have company. My sister flew in. She shouted happily into the phone. I'm already drunk. I'm not coming tonight. Maybe tomorrow night. Miranda, are you crazy? I have a child at home alone, Lisa resented. Find someone who will take your place. No way, answered Miranda. Our colleague went to the country yesterday, and her phone was disconnected. Think of something. Lisa would have stayed another 24 hours without a boyfriend, but she had no choice. She picked up the phone again and found the number of the shopkeeper on the list. Rustam, I can't stay another 24 hours. I have a child, I think alone. Find me a replacement. Is Miranda collapsing again? The businessman inquired. It's a pity she's a good girl. It's also a pity that there's no one to replace her. If you wait until morning at least, I'll send someone. I'm going to drop everything and leave, Lisa screamed. All the time? Miranda is late. Of course you can leave, my dear, said the stall owner in a sly voice. But please note that in this case, I will keep your salary for the month. I agree. Lisa was speechless at such insolence. I'll stay till morning, but I'll have to leave. If you take anything out of my paycheck for that, I'll be damned. She hung up and dialed another number. Nancy, honey, help me out one last time. Do you have a key to our apartment? You know I don't go out. They won't let me leave work till morning. And Taft's just waiting for Rick to rat me out. Take Kevin to your place for the night. Just try to keep it quiet. Our spies aren't dormant. The elderly neighbor gasped and promised to call Lisa back to report on how the operation to rescue the child from the locked apartment and move Kevin to the floor above had gone. We made it, Nancy reported a few minutes later, and Lisa breathed a sigh of relief. 6. As she'd planned, she couldn't leave, yawning desperately. Rustum didn't show up until 9:30. Lisa tossed him the keys and ran for the bus. The way lay through the park. The place was deserted now in the early morning, with only a few dog walkers strolling with their pets. Ice cream vendors were preparing to sell their not-so-demanding merchandise at the end of a chilly August. "Wait, honey? What's your hurry?" Lisa heard an elderly voice for 3 minutes. "I'm late without turning around," she shouted back. Whispered, "Nothing will happen to the baby. He's still asleep. You come early. Extra eyes will see you. You'll be blown away." Lisa stopped in amazement. How did the owner of the voice know what she was thinking? "I know a lot of things," she answered. And Lisa finally turned around. On the barrier sat a gypsy woman in a tattered, colorful skirt and a stretched old sweater. There are many of them in provincial towns. On her head, she wore a brightly colored, but now rather shabby shawl. On the dark, almost brown image, deep wrinkles, with a huge nose face, shone piercingly black eyes. "I haven't any money," Lisa said decisively. "You're the one who doesn't have money for a cab because you're the one packing the kid for school she a spoonful of soup. Poor old thing. Grandma Cindy has $10 to spare." At the cafe, yesterday's pumpkin soup at a discount. "How much do I want for an old woman?" mumbled the gypsy. Lisa, without wanting to, took a step towards the fortune teller. "I'll make this soup worth it," the gypsy promised. "I'll draw the cards, and they don't lie. The next bus is in an hour. You wouldn't have gotten far on this one anyway." The situation was completely absurd. Lisa took her purse out of her bag, took out some bills, and handed them to the old woman. "You don't have to work anything off. Buy yourself something to eat and I'll go." "Didn't Grandma Cindy tell you the truth?" The old woman grinned. "A quarter of an hour won't kill you. Just listen to what I say and you'll know good news." "Well, that depends on who's hearing it." "It's good news for you, but for some people it'll have to be," Lisa said sadly. She glanced at her watch. That's right, she missed the bus. Okay, she'll listen to what this strange Onishchenko has to say, as the fortune teller slowly spoke, laying out the tattered cards on the newspaper. "There's no long road ahead of you this year. You already have countless riches and the most expensive things. You have made the right choice, and for this you will get a double reward. Soon you'll forget how you lived in want. No matter how hard the King of Spades tries to hurt you, he won't succeed. He'll go to his black coffin. Worms, the king suffers. He's already punished for his stubbornness. Expect a visit one of these days. The guardian fears forgiveness. You'll have to beg. The Queen of Spades is a foolish, poor woman. You'll have many children. You shouldn't worry. Your son in heaven has asked for you." Lisa got up abruptly. "That's it. I've had enough. What's this all about?" And the king is a mean man in years. A military man who appears to be a rogue himself. He'll get what's coming to him. He does too much bad things to people. Queen of Spades. You're petty, and you know it. She's done you a lot of harm. It's all because of her unsettled fate. Yeah, from natural stupidity. Thatcher is the new king, the one who gave you that watch. He's bitterly regretting your breakup. Michael, is it? Lisa grinned bitterly. Stop talking nonsense. He found someone else a long time ago. Intelligence reports. As soon as he found her, he broke up with her. A young man. How can he do without women? Or did you think? He has to wait for you forever? He's waiting. He doesn't know how to come back. If you looked around, you'd notice he's at your house every day. That's enough, sweetheart. I've told you enough. You'll remember Grandma Cindy in a year. Lisa shook her head as if she were shaking off of an obsession. What was this mystery? No gypsy woman was already on the path, only the first yellows. A leaf fell from a maple tree onto an empty bench. She wandered to the bus. Before she was born, I guess. That's why she sees all sorts of nonsense. Excited people crowded at the bus stop. Imagine how good it was that I missed the previous bus. A young woman in a green raincoat was talking excitedly. I came home. I thought I forgot to turn off the iron. And then this happened. Several passengers dead, some injured. Some bald guy in a plaid shirt was reading the news on his phone. Look, and the pictures are already on social media. That was fast. The bus was only a couple miles away, and a truck hit it. Head on? Did somebody ask you that? No. A truck rear-ended our bus, the uncle explained. Lisa smelled a case. She always chose the introvert's seat. That's what she and Michael had once nicknamed the seat at the back of the bus. She hadn't missed the previous bus. Ethan wouldn't have waited for her. The phone in her pocket rang. "You're alive!" a neighbor shouted into the receiver. "It's already on the news about the accident with your bus." "Don't worry, Nancy. I missed that bus." "I'll be right there," Lisa replied, as calmly as possible. And she sank down on the bench. Her legs wouldn't hold her. A few minutes later, a new bus pulled up. The passengers silently sat down and went about their business. Nancy and Ethan were waiting for Lisa at home with the tea and cakes. No sooner had she crossed the threshold of her neighbor's apartment than they both rushed over to hug her. Breakfast. Ethan went for a walk in the yard. The women stayed in the kitchen. "Can you imagine, Nancy? This happened to me today." Lisa began her story. The old woman listened attentively without interrupting. When Lisa had finished speaking, the neighbor said, "And that's right, it's mystical. I didn't want to tell you. But the other day, I did see a man outside your house. I even asked him if he was coming to see you, and he was embarrassed and said he was just passing by." "Maybe he was into the neighborhood on business," Lisa said. "No, he's been in the neighborhood before, just randomly running errands and sitting in the courtyard. Anyway, he has his own life. A new girlfriend," Lisa said confidently. "Would you find out?" Nancy advised. "It's obvious that your feelings haven't cooled down yet, and your husband is obviously interested in you. He offered me a choice between him and my nephew," Lisa reminded me. "Do you know who I chose?" "We all do stupid things. Maybe you should forgive him." "I'm not going to make inquiries," Lisa said. "He'd have to show up." And he did show up. It was 2 days after Lisa had to work late. Michael came with a huge bouquet. Lisa gasped when she met him on the doorstep. "Go and get it," she said with a look of indifference. The owls of the neighbor's door rattled. "Look at her! The brothel divorced Star's rotten neighbor. A mouse with a child does not hesitate to bring men into the house, God forgive her. Some people will do anything for a bouquet." Kelly was right. David's wife was right. "Now I'll record everything. I have cameras ready, and then I'll put it in the main city group." The country should know its heroines, who profit from children's allowances in their spare time, exporting and moonlighting themselves. Michael turned sharply toward him. "Listen, Grandpa, have you heard anything about privacy? If that video shows up anywhere, you're looking at a subpoena." David Taft, despite his massive size, shrank into the wall of the entryway. "You're threatening me! You insult me! I'm going to report you." "I don't think so," Michael replied. "I suggest you read up on the law. You'll learn a lot of interesting things. By the way, I am a husband, and I have the right to come here at any time. I don't need your permission." The ex-husband, I checked with Kelly Fleming, is divorced. Peeked out from behind the spouse's shoulder. Woman mouse, or maybe just a roommate. We don't have to report changes in marital status to you, Michael Lisa parried. The incident with the neighbors was upsetting. Why did you argue with them? They're really going to call the nightstand now. It's going to be a showdown again. We're trying to keep the lights on. These two are reporting our every move to the guardianship office. You don't care, though. You'll probably be happy if they can send the kid back to boarding school. I don't care, Michael replied abruptly. Alisa, huh? I've been thinking a lot, and I've come to the conclusion that I've made a terrible mistake. I dreamed of an heir for so long, and when we did have one, albeit born to another woman, I'd given up. I wish more than anything in the world I could make it right. Ethan, will you accept me as a father, or at least an uncle? Will you marry me? I don't think I have any other choice, Lisa said. Nightstand's visit should be expected any day now, and I have no other choice, said Ethan. Yay! Now I have a real daddy! The nightstand did not fail to show up. Behind the inspector loomed the ubiquitous Taft with a video recorder. Are you a representative of the guardianship? Michael, who met Kelly at the door, asked sternly. He took a special day off work. Then come in, and this too curious member of the public will have to stay in the entryway. By the way, he continued, turning to David, your previous creations, which you spread in social networks, are already interested in the prosecutor's office. The statement is written, wait for guests. I warned you the other day to keep your nose out of our lives. And what did you do? Instead of heeding my advice, you edited a bunch of new videos and posted them on a city group with a few 100,000 followers. Are you stalking my spouse? Did she do something to offend you? Or are you trying to slap her? It was a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer. Taft fidgeted with the video recorder behind his back and dropped Michael. If right now you have decided to delete the video from social networks, it is certainly commendable. It will mitigate the liability, although it won't get rid of it. You know the internet remembers everything. Taft was in for another unpleasant surprise. I've been looking at your file, Michael added. You, David, tell everyone that you lost a leg in Afghanistan, but your legs are still there. It's true that one of them was badly fused after you got a fracture in a drunken brawl. Don't mislead people. My advice and this beret, you have no right to wear. You weren't even in the army. The girl was shocked and pissed off at Michael. She seemed to be at a loss for words. However, the official quickly came to her senses. Who the hell are you? What right do you have to be in an apartment belonging to an orphan? I have the right to call the police, and I'll do it right now. Could it be that you're a criminal, kidnapping an orphan and selling him? You're committing lewd acts in front of the child. Ethan should be sent to a boarding school. First of all, I'm Lisa's husband. Secondly, the apartment belongs to Lisa and Ethan equally. Michael parried. Thirdly, I won't let you insult your spouse and scare the child anymore. You're going to allow yourself something extra? I've been notifying your superiors. I have the means to do so, rest assured. You don't have to scare me, I'm filthy. The bedside table rattled, pulling out a phone from a plump, shapeless bag. The police will come quickly. We'll get the kid checked into the orphanage right away. We get signals all the time. Tell me, please, dear Kelly, Michael began cordially. Are you interested in city regional news? Or do you devote your life to prying into other people's families and harming them? He showed, staggered to the nightstand, some kind of identification. Since last week, I have been in charge of family, motherhood, and childhood issues in our entire region. That is, I am your boss. I will do everything I can to make sure that people like you are not allowed anywhere near children. I advise you to call the head of your department immediately and clarify the information by talking to your boss. Kelly snickered. Suddenly, the papal subtlety has taken its toll. Why does one get everything, an attractive appearance, and husbands, officials, and family, and others only miserable? A room in a communal apartment. I'm a veteran teacher. I just do my job and try to make sure that everything is according to the law, and I never get any thanks, just curses. It's hard to expect gratitude from people who have wronged you, isn't it? Asked Michael, who was not in the least impressed by this fiery speech. He swung the front door open sharply, and David eavesdropped in the entryway. I barely had time to bounce out of the way. Let's record the dirt, citizen, Michael asked cheerfully. Life teaches you nothing, Taft, to people like you. You should be kicked out of all positions with a broom, shouted David, hiding in his apartment. I will reach Moscow. You will remember me when you go to jail. Normal people have no life because of such officials. Damn bribe takers! Michael slammed the door and turned to the nightstand again. Kelly, did you get all your questions answered? The visit is over. I'll notify your supervisor about the departmental review. You might want to rethink the way you do things. She's still sobbing. She's running out the door. Come on! Taft invited her. But the official didn't take his invitation. She paused for a moment and said, You know what, David? Fuck you. You old gossip. I'll sue you for insult, bitch! Taft got angry and once again slammed the door shut. Looking ahead, we'll tell you that the rate of the litigation between recent friends and now irreconcilable enemies dragged on for 4 years. Both of the pro went to court as if to work, and not once any judge was able to force the parties to reconcile. During this time, the nightstand finally retired, and homegrown paparazzi Taft on the grounds of the same unclean acquired major health problems. When his wife finally forced him, lost weight by 40 kilograms, and to go to the doctor, it turned out that it was too late to treat. You should move to the countryside for fresh air. Averting his eyes advised the hopeless and patient. Young doctor. Would that help? Taft asked hopefully. I won't die. We all die someday, the doctor replied evasively. The quality of life in this countryside is in any case better than here among the cars. Will you bask in the sun in your own garden? That's a great thing for a pensioner to do. That's what ruined me on E. Taft was crying on social media. Some even felt sorry for him, as one does for the dying, but there was no hurry to help or raise money for treatment. Lisa accepted her ex-husband Ethan's offer, and they adopted. On the day it happened, the radiant couple walked out of the courthouse with their first-grade son. This is to be celebrated, dear housemates, thundered the big official, Michael. Ethan, take your pick. Where are we going? I will choose today. Lisa suddenly objected. I have a surprise for you. Is it what I think it is? Michael asked quickly, and the wife smiled. 7 months later, a gleaming black executive car drove up to the maternity hospital. Daddy, we still haven't come up with names for Maltsev, worried Kevin. We'll take our family home now, then we'll think of one, Michael replied. We couldn't tell the child that he and Lisa were afraid of jinxes, afraid of a repetition of the terrible thing that had happened 8 years ago. But it all turned out all right. Now they are a large family. Michael Lisa for many years could not dream of it. They spent the whole evening coming up with names. Ethan made the parents laugh with a suggestion to name the little sister in blue. For some reason, the idea did not resonate in the parents' hearts, although they are so worse. Ik had arbeid. Von bouw wie weed a voorkelp zal je stuur. The babies ended up being named Nancy and Jack. Better wise then, Kevin replied. We've had enough Michael and Ethan and Lisa in our family. At least let those two be normal. At least we won't forget what their names are, because the names rhyme. The pleasant hassle of bringing twins into the family has begun. Ethan was helping Lisa. While Michael was at work, and in the evenings, the newly minted father of many children fully devoted himself to the children. But only to walk with the kids, Lisa was a little difficult. While we are chasing one, the other will run away. Why don't we move to the country? Michael once asked the family. We could sell the apartments and buy a nice house right away. I could drive Kevin to school myself. They were enthusiastic about the idea. The search for a suitable home began. Look how cute it is. I found it. Lisa met her husband from work one day. Let's go down this weekend and see it. A 3-story mansion on the edge of the woods. It's right on the shore of the lake. It'd be perfect for the kids. But the price the seller quoted was 3 times what he could get for the apartments. I guess I'll have to look at something simpler, Michael sighed, or take out a mortgage. The main thing was that no one else would buy the house, Kevin worried. If you want me to get a job, I'll take the neighbors' dogs out too, just so we can move here. The problem was resolved quickly. Suddenly, one day the doorbell rang. Ethan, open up, asked Lena, who was preparing dinner for the kids. There was nothing to be afraid of. The nightstand had forgotten its way into their house forever. And the unpleasant neighbor David was absorbed in legal proceedings. Hello, you must be Ethan? Lisa heard a familiar voice. The plate fell out of her hands and shattered. When Kathy entered the kitchen, "Hello, sister," she said in a friendly manner. "War found you, thanks to money and the internet. What do you want? Did you sign all the papers? Please be quiet." Lisa was scared. Calm down. It's not part of my plans. I still prefer to love other people's children from a distance, smiled Kathy. Huh. I came to thank you for everything you've done for me and for never telling the boy the truth. I won't tell either, Lisa replied. Kathy dragged a huge morgue from the hallway. Like a country aunt, I made a joke. She brought some goodies. I really missed you. Let's celebrate my short visit. Otherwise, I'll soon forget Russian altogether. The tension eased. Kathy pulled more and more things out of her homeless valise. This is for you. Do you like brand name scarves? Here's a gift from Kenzo. It's for Michael, his favorite perfume. Which one is it for? What kind of stuff? And this is for the moths. Lisa Bury in the audience. Mixed feelings. Where were you when your child was being sent to an orphanage? When you were sitting in a kiosk at night? Nancy thought and immediately pushed the lonely thought away. And Michael had betrayed her once, too, and she forgave him. In the evening, when the head of the family came home from work, the table was set. And before that, Kathy, despite her sister's objections, willingly helped her cook. She seemed to have learned to cook. She noted with satisfaction as she tasted the dishes. We'll do the same for mine tomorrow, okay? I'm not likely to do such feats at home. We have a cook, so you didn't come alone? Lisa and her husband were surprised. Wait till tonight, I'll tell you all about it. And so, the whole family gathered for dinner. A frank conversation took place when the children were fed and put to bed. I came here to tell you that I'm never coming back. Kathy began the story. I'm here. She looked at Lisa carefully. Nothing's keeping me here. Really, you guys are the only relatives, and I owe you a debt of gratitude, like I told Lisa this morning. Kathy's story was a long one. During the 3 years that she spent abroad, her life had undergone significant changes. We broke up with the bigwig Seryoga almost immediately, because Rick had fallen for me. She recalled, old and lonely, very religious. I asked her to marry him, and she didn't refuse. I needed a foothold in England, and I was ready for anything. The young husband adored his Russian wife, bought her everything Kathy wanted. He paid for her education, first at school, then at the preparatory courses at the university, and did not ask questions about the past of the young wife. But it turned out that Rick was still collecting information about me, Kathy continued. One day he said we needed to have a serious talk. Kathy went. The case, she knew. Serious conversations, no matter who initiated them, always entailed problems. He must have found out something terrible. And from the point of view of a deeply religious, not young Englishman, there were more than enough terrible facts in her biography. On the way to her husband's study, Kathy pondered where she would live. Rick would probably take the jewelry away from her. I wondered if it would work. At least convince him not to cancel her visa. She may well get a job as a waitress or at least a cleaner. Some places provide housing for their employees. She should be so lucky. Maybe her husband will leave her the car. Then it will be possible to rent a cheap room in the suburbs and every morning to go to work in the capital. The husband, contrary to Kathy's misgivings, did not look dissatisfied or aggressive. Rather, he was saddened. "Baby, I'm sorry," Rick began. "I made some inquiries for you, and it allowed me to draw some conclusions. Some of the inquiries included information about the rape of a schoolgirl, the birth of an unwanted child, and the future fate of Kevin." "I'm an old man. I can afford to show emotion," Rick continued. "You know I cried when I heard what you had been through. I was going to suggest that you take your Bobby back here to England, but as far as I'm concerned, you can't have feelings for a child who was born as a result of rape. And I can't make you love that boy, but I can do something for him, because it's a part of you and for your sister, who has accomplished a real feat for your son." Rick, worried and begging his wife not to worry too much, told her everything, and what the detectives had told him about Lisa and her fight for Kevin and the family reunion. "We should thank these people," Rich summarized. "We're going to Russia tomorrow, but I have one condition: I could just transport your sister a large sum of money. I'm sure she wouldn't waste that money. Lisa is an amazingly kind person and a real fighter, a rare combination. But people have to take responsibility for their mistakes. I want you to right these wrongs yourself. I want you to meet with Lisa and talk to her. If you develop feelings for your son, at which I frankly doubt, my lawyers will settle the matter by traveling to Lisa's hometown." The couple settled into the best hotel in town. Rick wanted Kathy to visit the family without him. It's a quicker way to rebuild family ties. "Family is sacred," he explained. "If you want, I'll join you later the next day." When Ethan opened the door for me, I didn't recognize him, of course. I just guessed it was him, Lisa said. And you know what? I realized that I still wasn't feeling anything. Especially since just yesterday, I took a pregnancy test and found out that I'm expecting my baby's child with a really decent man. When I married a man almost 3 times my age, I was doing it for a quiet life of prosperity. Now I realize I really love him. Well, good for all of us. Tomorrow, Rick will wire Ethan a large sum of money. Whenever he wants to, he can come and visit us in the UK. I'm his aunt on paper, and I'm still his aunt. What remains to be decided is a gift for you. Refuse the generous offer Michael did not. The very next day, the couple with their other children, acquired relatives, went to buy a dream house. Rick turned out to be a surprisingly nice man. Lisa realized that Kathy could not have made a better choice, and how happy he was when he found out he would soon be a father. I've never had children of my own. I can't believe it's finally happening. The Englishman was jubilant, rejuvenated before his eyes. He looked at Lisa and said, "Once a long time ago, I dreamed of naming my daughter after my mother. But now I've changed my mind. The eldest daughter, and I am sure it will be a girl, as beautiful as my dear Kathy." When I learned about the life of this remarkable woman, I was sure she was made of stone. Perhaps that is indeed true, but she has a huge heart. A week later, the girl returned to her homeland, to Foggy Albion, and Simpson was left to enjoy the wealth that had fallen on his head like a snowball. Here, it would seem, it was possible to put an end to it, Ethan pleased his parents with his success in school, and they had already started kindergarten. Kathy and Rick had a daughter, Wendy. Now the couple were thinking about having a son. Rick felt fine, but even if something happened to him, the young wife and daughter would be provided for the rest of their lives. But Lisa had not forgotten another prediction from the old gypsy woman Cindy about forgiveness for the Queen of Spades. She told her husband about a strange occurrence in the park. Michael took the prophecy surprisingly calmly. It really took me a long time to decide to approach you, apologize, and try to repair the relationship, he said. I was sure you were growing up and had been watching you from a distance. If you were a regular profiteer, it wouldn't have been a problem, because I've always made a decent living. That's what attracted me to your temporary successor. We broke up after I caught her with another man before her time. I came back from a business trip. That's when she told me everything. What a boring asshole I am. I don't know how to do anything. I'm just a purse on legs. But I was sure you wouldn't accept material help or gifts from me, not even for Kevin. You wouldn't want to take advantage of my position of authority either. And that day, when I brought you the bouquet, as if something made me buy all the roses in the flower store, I went without any hope of success. But you didn't turn me away. In fact, that day you protected me from angry neighbors and an equally aggressive official, Lisa reminded me. I forgave you a long time ago, but it was my pride that prevented me from making the first contact. It's so good that you took the first step. I can't imagine what we would have done without you. It's very easy to imagine. I would have gone to England, lived there in my sister's house. I would not give a damn, Michael joked. Speaking of predictions about the new king, I hope it's all clear to you. He is now forever at your beautiful feet. The King of Spades, Kabanov, is also clear. They say he doesn't have long left to smoke in the sky. I think you and I got our award too. That leaves only the Queen of Spades, our beloved Kelly, a well-deserved pensioner. But I got the impression that the evil hoverfly doesn't need your forgiveness too much. So the gypsy woman was wrong about something? The answer to this question Simpson received the next weekend, when they went for a walk around the city. Look, Michael, an old woman fell into a puddle, Lisa exclaimed. She's formidable. I'm afraid I won't be able to pick her up without your help. The couple told Rostek to play with the twins and rushed to help the old woman. Not without difficulty, lifted her off the ground and sat her on a bench. Did you make a big mistake? Should we call an ambulance? Lisa asked. No, Lisa. I'll sit for a while and then I'll go, answered the grandmother. And Lisa stared at her in amazement. Kelly, what happened to you? The old woman cried bitterly. I'm homeless now, she wailed. I thought my luck would last forever. I won. Didn't take all these trials to the grave long ago. And I thought for joy that now fortune turned to me. The old fool turned out to be self-confident. A pensioner fell for a scam. And just what I needed, she lamented. The pension wasn't bad. The roof over my head was nothing. A room in a communal house. No, I wanted it to make 1,000,000. To prove to everyone that I'm not just an old lady. To be honest, I was jealous of your family. So God punished me. Some people get everything, others nothing. Michael recalled the words the envious nightstand said once in the kitchen of the apartment. One day, Kelly received a phone call from a nice young man. My name is Robert, and I want to offer you to invest in investments. Playing the stock market is a lucrative business. You know what the return on the stock of the largest airline in our country? I myself invested about $101,000 in shares just 3 months ago. And yesterday I moved into a new apartment. For a reasonable fee, I am ready to share information and provide training. To begin with, the cautious ex-official transferred only $10,000 to the designated account. The next day, she received a phone call from an excited Robert. "Kelly, this is unbelievable. You made $30,000 in one day." Open the app. The naive pensioner followed this advice and made sure that the interlocutor was telling the truth. According to the website, the account really had not $10,000, but $40,000. "Try to withdraw the money," Robert suggested. The cell phone rattled briefly. The bank's message came through. Almost a third of the amount had been withdrawn. "Can I use whatever is left in my account in the app to buy the stock again?" The woman asked the curator, elated by the success. "You can, of course, but I have a much more favorable offer for you." "True, you will have to wait a couple of weeks." "But the winnings will be much bigger," assured Robert. "Enough for a trip to the Maldives and a decent car." "Do you have an entitlement?" "No, but I can get it," said Nightstand. "Good call. By the way, there's enough money for tuition at the driving school, too." "According to Ilya, I should have just invested more money to make super profits. But I only have $100,000 in my account," the pensioner admitted. "No problem." "You can take out a loan against the mortgage," the curator advised. "The money will come so quickly that you won't even have to pay huge interest to the bank." The bank gave her $500,000 on the security of the room. The gullible teacher invested all this money in investments. But when she tried to withdraw it to her card a couple of weeks later, as she did the first time, the site froze. "Did you do something wrong?" Robert said worriedly. "To unlock it, you need to send the site an amount within $100,000. The gullible one withdrew the rest of her savings from the bank and transferred them to the site. The portal froze again, and the phone screen showed the inscription, "Temporarily unavailable." The victim waited almost a month for the money, and then she read a newspaper article about a new type of deception and immediately realized everything. Kelly went to the police, but they never they never found the scammers. Or maybe they just weren't looking for them. 2 months later, the pensioner started receiving calls from the bank. First, that they demanded a minimum payment, then that they warned that they would take away the house. After another 3 months, a court took place, which ruled in favor of the credit institution. And then the bailiff showed up. The debtor was told to move out of her room. "So now I'll just leave her on the streets." "It's good that it's summer," Kelly sighed. "I tried to ask my former colleagues for a place to sleep, but they all refused. I don't know what to do now." "What Maldives? I just need to find a warm entryway for the winter." "Why am I telling you all this? I've caused your family so much misery." Then she cried bitterly again. "I pity her," Lisa whispered in her husband's ear. "Let's let her stay in one of our apartments. She won't last long anyway." "I've already convinced myself once that it's dangerous to argue with you," Michael pointed out. "I can't forbid anything. Of course, she's a scoundrel. But you can't leave her on the street, and you can't send her to an old people's home. She'll drive everyone crazy with her nagging." Soon, Kelly did move into the apartment where she had so scandalously taken a former student's child. If you believe that the nightstand had reformed in vain, she remained just as cohesive and with a nasty temper. And in just a week, she managed to pick a fight with the whole neighborhood. She threatened to prosecute the dog owners. Children playing in the yard were viciously berated. Even the kindest Nancy, having tried somehow to placate the nightstand with fresh pies, was sent away. Promised to send to the neighbor Rospotrebnadzor and complain to the tax office that she as if she was engaged in unauthorized trade. And I warned Sheppel Michael, "You're always picking on the wretches. It is to us round the clock we'll have to apologize to the neighbors. Let's figure out where to put it." Perhaps that would have happened, but soon she fell gravely ill. Lisa went to check on her, because the scandalous tenant wasn't answering her phone, and found her on the kitchen floor. A stroke, the doctor declared, There's no room for these patients. No one will keep her in the hospital for years. When she stabilizes, we'll discharge her. You'll have to take care of her on your own. She's got a healthy heart. Maybe she'll be like this for 15 years? I suggest you get disability. It's expensive to take care of such patients, but she's not even related to us. Michael resented. I can't help you, the doctor replied coldly. But the hospital will bring her here after the old woman is discharged from the hospital. Lisa's worries increased. She was literally torn between the little school children and the paralyzed patient. She couldn't do anything on her own. When the poor thing needed something, she screamed in a frenzy of pain. Good thing, Michael joked sadly. She couldn't swear. Claims, however, he did not. However, was afraid to offend his wife. 4 months later, she suddenly regained her speech. It came out like this. Lisa is the queen of Thailand. Lisa couldn't believe her ears. She went to the bed to fetch something. Are you thirsty? Or do you need a change of underwear? I'm sorry, the old woman mumbled indistinctly and stared at Lisa. How long have you been sorry? She said. Well, now that you're talking, will you get better? Let's have some tea. When Lisa came back from the kitchen with a glass of warm tea, the old woman was already dead. Lisa closed her eyes and called her husband. So, the old woman's last prediction has come true, Michael said thoughtfully. I wonder where to find this Cindy. I'd ask her something myself. A young sophomore student was running through the empty park, late for the bus. Not to miss the bus. The test is in an hour and a half. The teacher's strict. If Sam fails the test, he won't be allowed to take the exams. And that's the end of the dream of higher education. And at home, the sick mother, who dreamed so much that her son became a doctor, denied herself everything. Sam hired tutors, worked 3 jobs, Sal Mortensen, and now she had to do it. Don't be in such a hurry, there's no credit today. Is your John sick? Heard the student and tush her. Orsumden from surprise stopped on the curb and settled down. Patra, an old gypsy woman. In a scarf. In her hands, she held a deck of tattered cards. Your mom's gonna be fine, and you're gonna be a famous heart surgeon. And yes, the third-year girl likes you too, but she wants you to make the first move. Girls, not like that, smiled the strange fortune teller. Better buy Grandma Cindy a spoonful of pumpkin soup orange, like the fall sun. Flavorful, hot. And I'll tell you the whole truth in return. Am I confused?